Welcome to the Epic Success Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shannon Irvine. Buckle up, maybe slow down, not as much coffee when you're listening to me today, because today I have a giant among us. Mr. Dean Graziosi is on the podcast today, talking all about his knowledge business, his partnership with Tony Robbins, how he's really allowed his expertise to be the thing that has blessed people, and how he's trained his brain for success. We really dive into what really were the difference makers from his real estate days to his best-selling books, all the way through his current partnership with Tony Robbins and the Knowledge Blueprint. I cannot wait for you to hear this interview, because one of the things that we talk about a lot on the podcast is, how do people at that multiple 8-figure level think, and are they different than me? And you think that we're like these unique unicorns and we're different. And I think this interview is going to blow your mind for two different reasons. First of all, to show you the realness of the work that you're already doing if you're in the insider tribe, as you're training your brain to transform your business, building that automatic success pathway by looking into the future, having your brain believe it before you see it. I know I need to take a breath, because I'm so jazzed for you to listen to this episode. This interview was so much fun. I think you're going to get so much out of it, looking into the mind of somebody at his level, as well as how he is coaching you to step into that next level and really start getting your knowledge out there in the world. So here is the one and only Dean Graziosi. Here we go. Dean, welcome to the podcast. First of all, super honored, super humbled that you're coming to the Epic Success Podcast. Welcome.
Oh, it's great to be here.
So I'm so thrilled, because I've been a student of yours for a very long time. I remember back in the day in Arizona watching you on TV. So you've been sharing your knowledge for a very long time. So I would love to dive into what obsesses you. And I'm using that word literally. I use it a lot, but there's no other person that's better used than for you. You are obsessed with sharing what you know. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that history and why the obsession and what it's kind of grown into over the last few years.
Yeah, first off, I appreciate all you do. I didn't follow a lot of your stuff until my team said we were doing this interview. Then I geeked out a little bit, and it's great what you give to the world. And I love that painting in the back. Is that a brain, or is that just?
It is. That's what I get to do, is help people automate their brains for success.
I love it. I love it. So let me, it's a really great question. I love when I get a question that's different than most, right? Just a lot of times I love talking about my story, but I love to get right in it, because we all have our own story, but how do we use it? And if you're listening right now, there's a million things you could be doing, but you're here with us, and I really appreciate that. So I want to deliver the most value possible. So it's an obsession for me, because I think it's because I was an inch away from being left behind. And if I think about that in my own life, I really struggled. I probably could have used your help lighting my brain up in high school, but there were certain things that seemed so difficult to me, and certain things that were so easy. So reading was so difficult. I couldn't read and comprehend, and I really felt dumb. And especially I had some teachers that helped reinforce that. I had some teachers that were amazing too, and showed me love. And one of my teachers became like an adopted grandmother, while another one told me how dumb I was because I couldn't sound it out. And I just remember feeling like school is for smart people. High-level jobs are for smart people. That's just me. I'm just going to be a mechanic. And I don't mean that in disrespect, but my dad worked on cars. I was going to work on cars. But luckily I was driven that I wanted more. And I think I was driven because I watched my mom struggle, and I just wanted to help her. She was working 3 jobs to make nothing. I'm like, I got to fix this. So it was like this division of thoughts. One was, you're not that smart. You don't have money. You can't figure stuff out. And the other one was like, screw all that. You're going to make it work no matter what, right? But what happened to me in my early 20s is I became friends with people older than me. A couple of them were in their 60s. One of my best friends was Mark Miller. He was in his 80s, and he was a famous painter back in the 50s and 60s, one of the top illustrative artists of all time. Became this friend, and he just gave me different thoughts than anyone in my family ever gave me. You know what my father would say left, and this guy's saying, I appreciate what your father says, but it's completely wrong. You got to go over here. And he looked like he was having a good life. And my dad struggled a lot, right? And then in my mid-20s, I saw Tony Robbins on an infomercial, and I bought his Personal Power and The Ultimate Edge.
Yep.
And Shannon, it was like, I got it and I listened to it. It wasn't like I listened to it and said, oh, I listened to it and I believed every word he said. It spoke to a part of my soul. And I'd love your thoughts on this. It spoke to a part of my soul that was like, I knew that was true. And I was dying for it. And I realized at that moment that like, there was another path. If I wasn't that smart in certain ways, but really brilliant in other ways, if I couldn't go through traditional and general knowledge, I could learn from other people. And it just changed my world. Like, I'd love to like emphasize it, but it just made me realize. And I remember thinking, why don't they do this in school? Yes. Why don't they allow us to learn from people who've done it if we had a different path? And then it was on from there. I started obsessing on any teacher I could get my hands on, any people were successful. And within 2 years, I built my first information product because I said, you know, Tony Robbins took my money, he gave me information, and it changed my life forever. I'm like, I want to do that.
Amen. He did me too. So amen. I get it. And so you dove into this first information product. Share, in case my audience only knows you from the current Graziosi, I would love for you to share a little bit of what I observed in you early on, because it's a little different, but you're still kind of doing the same thing in a different way.
Yeah, no, great. And the reason I said before I was almost left behind is it's such a passion right now, Shannon, because what if I didn't get that information? Right. What if I didn't get Tony's course? I might have been hustling and doing good, but I'd never have the abilities I have now. If I didn't learn about Wayne Dyer and Eckhart Tolle and Deepak Chopra and Dale Carnegie and Earl Nightingale, and then reading business books and going through business courses and going to mastermind, like, I don't know where I'd be. So now, of course, it's not kind of a passion, it's an obsession. Yes. Because there's so many people right now, some of you listening, you know there's more gas in the tank. You know you were meant for more in life. And I don't just mean money. A lot of us are just meant for more impact. Byproduct of impact is money. The byproduct of value creation is more success. But you know there's more, but you're like a horse at the beginning of the race and no one's opening the gates. Yeah. And to me, self-education opens the gates and lets you run. But most people aren't aware of it on the level they should be. So that's why it's my obsession at this phase. But back then, so when I got Tony's course in my mid-20s, you guys might, again, some of you might know who I am, some of you don't, that's cool too. But I was literally fixing cars all day. I had a collision shop, had a used car sales, which was like 3 or 4 used cars at a time. I had a tow truck where I used to run all night. And during the night, and then after 5 o'clock, I'd work on real estate. So I ended up having about 25 apartments. And then in my late 20s, I started building houses, buying raw land and subdividing. And then when Tony Robbins came into my life in 1998, I actually filmed an infomercial because there wasn't podcast and there wasn't, you know, that time. And so everybody's like, why didn't you just go online? I'm like, because you couldn't even stream a video online then. It's like, it was smoke signals and horses and buggies. I don't know.
Horses and buggies.
Yeah. So I created an information product. I went on TV and just been obsessed with this industry ever since.
Yeah. And that's where I first saw you. And I was talking to our mutual friend, Russell Brunson, about this too. That's where his first intersection with you was. And what I loved about back then, and as I've watched your career, as my tribe knows, I talk a lot about the fact that you are always training your brain, whether you realize it or not. You are either allowing it to stay on autopilot to be trained by your past, or you're allowing it to be on fast forward and you're training it based on a future that is not evident yet. And that is what Dean did. Like, he got obsessed with Tony and then he just couldn't stop consuming the information that made his brain then look to what was possible versus what was reality.
No, and God, I love that you say that. I'd love to pick your brain about this because
anytime.
The other thing I think we all have to be aware of, Shannon, and this is your expertise. So I'm asking, not telling you. I'm just telling you in my own life, my old brain that wants to compare me to my past fights to still come and take control today. Like, if I told everybody I figured this out, I have nothing but positive thoughts. Right. I never feel I'm going to lose. That would be the biggest lie in the world. I have to be consciously aware on a regular basis to focus on a future that's not evident, to be courageous, to believe it'll be true, to take what I've done in the past as my energy and fuel to know I can accomplish the rest. But simultaneously, there's this voice that said, you pushed it too far. You're not going to make it. It's still there. Is that normal, or am I just a little crazy?
You're so normal. And I just want to thank you for saying that, because working with people who are just getting into the industry, or 5 figures trying to get to 6, or 6 trying to get to 7, they believe that we're like these magical unicorns, and that once we arrive as magical unicorns, that we never ever have that happen again. And the reality is what Dean just said. It's like, next level, next devil.
Next level, next devil. Oh my God, I'm stealing that. I'm writing it down.
Steal it all you want. So it's like, here he is. He's got, 8 figures business. You just gave away $500,000 at Tony's event the other day, which was amazing. I was in tears, by the way. I'm like, oh my God.
I was in tears the whole event. I was watching the videos, and I remember thinking, I'm going to give away this amount. I'm like, no, I'm going to give away more.
Yeah.
And then I watched another video. I'm like, screw it. Like, what is money? We could make it like, I knew I had to do it. I knew.
Oh my gosh. And as somebody who's run a charity for the last 15 years, like, what you did has changed so many lives. But he had to step into that version. I'm sure he was having all the dialogues in his head.
I'll just say, listen, I get to say now, like, people introduce me, it's like, Dean Graziosi, multiple New York Times bestselling author, right? That sounds really cool. But it wasn't cool when I wrote my first book, and I'd barely ever read a book in my life. I listened to audios, but I never read one, because I just can't. I still can't read well. So I wrote the first book. I hire an editor. She reads it. She's all excited to read my book because she had seen me on TV. And then she reads my book, and she's like, I can't wait for this. And she calls me that night. She goes, Dean, that's not a book. It's a 200-page conversation. You're going to have to rewrite it. And literally the devil was like, that, or whatever you call it, the villain was like, see, you're kind of dumb. Who are you to think you could write a book? I'm not, zero exaggeration. We're on a computer now. I was an inch away from just deleting and going, that's embarrassing. Why did I even try to write a book?
Wow.
I literally almost deleted it. I sat on it for about a month. And then it took me a while to get out of the bad conversation. I got into the other conversation, said, I can do this. I want to inspire people. She's like, you didn't break one rule, Dean. You broke every rule that exists for writing a book. Wow. Long story short, no exaggeration. I didn't delete it. I hired an editor and said, just make it so I don't look dumb. That's all I asked. Leave my words. I'll give it a shot. And it was my first New York Times bestseller. Everybody loved the book. And it was an inch away from, it wasn't just her. It was me. It was that inner voice going, yeah, she's right. You're dumb. Delete, delete, delete. So I get it. It's always there, but we have to fight, because there's another version of us. There's a better version of us. There's the version that God, the universe, whatever you believe in, living inside of you. And when you shut that horrible voice up, when you can find your new voice, there's honestly no limits, no matter how hard it seems right now, no matter how many times you failed. The ability to get back up and manifest the future, stare at the future, and use your past success as evidence that you could accomplish what you want. That's where life gets magical. That's where you can go to an event, a kid that lived in a trailer park, and I lived in a bathroom with my dad for a year because there wasn't heat in our house. And 2 nights ago, I was able to give $500,000 to a charity to save children in need.
Man. And if you would have asked yourself right before almost hitting delete, was that a possibility? Like, did you have the screen all planned out, right? Because that's the lie. The biggest lie that's out there is, well, I need to know all the steps so that I can take a step.
Oh, right? God, you're so good. It's so true. And what do you do? Overanalysis causes paralysis. I know that's a saying. It's kind of duh, but it's so true. Yeah. I listen to everybody, like even Tony Robbins and I now, we're getting people like, you need to be in the knowledge industry. You have a skill, a hobby, a passion. You have an experience you went through. Other people need it. I'm like, well, let me take the next 14 years and figure everything out, and then maybe I'll consider it. But that's every opportunity. And then all of a sudden you miss a decade. Yes. You miss 5 years, and it's like you're still wanting more. And the old habits come in and say, no, we're not ready. We're not ready. Maybe when the kids leave, maybe when you read a little more, maybe when your husband supports you, we're not ready. We're not ready. And then you go, whoa, I'm 40. Well, I'll do it. Whoa, I'm 50. Well, I'll do it. Oh, I'm 60. It's like, that's why do you think we scream? Why do you think it's why you do what you do? It's like, come on, we got this.
Yeah. And that's been my own personal journey. Offline, I was consulting with 6 and 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs, all word of mouth, didn't have to communicate what I did. because it just sold itself with people. And I was running my charity. And so I loved that world because the charity world and the entrepreneur world don't mix. And I'm an entrepreneur that created a charity, not the other way around.
Oh, I love that.
So I was like, well, this is working well, except for there was this little problem. And the little problem was I knew I was meant for more. Like I knew I would go to sleep at night seeing a million entrepreneurs training their thinking and actually automating their success. I could see them, like all of these people finally not letting the limiting beliefs that are on autopilot that aren't their fault anyway, actually stopping them from being who they were called to be. And it just became, like you, an obsession to the point where I had to decide. And that is it, right? A moment of decision of like, you know what? People might judge my nonprofit for me bringing this online. People might judge me. I might, and yes, they will. But the obsession to do the thing that we're called to do, to impart the knowledge, to make somebody else's journey better, stronger, faster, more enjoyable, became so strong for me that I couldn't not do it. And that was
you just said something that was so powerful. I get it. I'm writing something down because you sparked something.
Good.
Here's the funny part. What you just said is that I will teach, whether I'm in a group where someone pays me insane amounts of money for a day of consulting or a group, or this morning I was on with new members of what Tony and I are working on.
Yes.
And I think everybody's waiting for me to give this magical thing like, okay, everybody, nobody's looking. This is how you get wealthy and make impact. Oh, like sunbeams shoot out, right? I said, I'm going to tell you something you've heard before, but I want you to hear it through a different lens, or hear it through a different, context. And maybe for the first time, actually really hear it. And here it goes. Whether you're going to be successful or not has 100% to do with your belief. And I know it sounds simple, and that's why I said I know it sounds simple. You've heard it a million times, but I'm just telling you from someone experience. If we believe we can, if we listen to the voice that tells us that we have a future, it's not designed by anyone, and we can craft it any way we want, that's one belief. A belief that says, I've gotten enrolled in courses before, I've read books before, I've gone to events before, I've listened to great podcasts, and I didn't do anything, and I need to learn everything. If you let that belief come in, you'll just continue to repeat the pattern.
Yes.
I tell that to people all the time. They're like, if you go back to your 17-year-old self, what would you tell them? It'd be one thing: change your belief, change your life, change the story, and nothing can stop you. But it's not as easy. But here's the thing that I think everyone should know: it's not easy. But nothing in life that's worth it is easy. If you want to have the belief that tells you can't, then when you're 90 years old and you get there, 100 years old, and you get to sit down with your maker, and he says, "So how was your life?" And you're like, "Well, I believe that wasn't good enough, so I just played it status quo." I'm like, "Oh, another one. Okay, next." You know what I mean? I never go off on that, but it's so true.
Yeah, it's so true. And we know it from neuroscience because our brain has to believe it before you'll see it. Your brain has to believe it before you see it. From a neurological standpoint, that's how we build neural networks in our brain. You have to believe it first before you can actually get the glucose going in your brain to actually see it. And I love your story so much, Dean, because I tell my neuro coaches that, like, you are an accidental brain primer. You didn't call it that. You didn't know you were doing it, but yet the whole time you were believing it before you saw it, and you were believing it again before you saw it. And before you knew it, there it was. Maybe not exactly how you thought it would be, but maybe better, sometimes different, but there it was. And then you would use that as evidence to keep that rolling. What's in your mind is somebody listening to us and they're like, that thing is igniting in them, and they're like, I want to do something. What would you say would be really the baby steps for them to stop living in the evidence of the now and start living in the evidence of what could be?
I would say for me, it's the inspiration of others.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's somebody just like you with the same obstacles as you, the same pain as you, the same fear as you, and they overcame it, and they've gone on to do something impactful, successful, whatever it is you want to do. So for me, it's always like, Jim Rohn used to say, and Tony Robbins says it now, success leaves clues. Yeah. Like, look for the clues in your past that when you went after something, it could have been going after on a team in high school and you wanted to be the starting pitcher. You weren't at one time, you dreamed you would be, and then you made it. But if you look at your job and you go, I'm just stuck in mid-level management, you wonder why you're stuck in mid-level management, because that's the story you're telling yourself, right? I mean, there's nothing better than evidence from past experience of yourself or from someone who's been there. And the other thing I would do is, I like, again, you probably have way better ways than this, but I always look at calling BS on the story. Like I'll say, I could do this, but I just need a little more money. It's like, really?
Yes.
It's like, remember, resourcefulness far outweighs resources. Why do people hit lotto, go broke? They have resources, they lack resourcefulness. Why are the most successful people in the world started with nothing, with fear, with envy, with all the worries? Is because they found a way to be resourceful. I geeked out on this and I read all like the founding fathers of America, from George Washington to all of them. If you look at every single person, then all the way through, that they all found a way to be resourceful, and they found a way to shift their belief, right? If you look, again, I geeked out on a 42-hour book on George Washington. That guy was, I mean, there's a million stories.
Oh my
and
gosh.
if you, wherever in the world you are, you know that George Washington helped, liberate America. Yeah. But you don't see the little things, that when the English army came over, which was the strongest army in the world, and there was 32,000 of them, 11,000 of them were Hessians, paid just killers. And George Washington had 6,000 ragtag people with no army, no gun, hardly any guns, running out of gunpowder. Half of them didn't have shoes. 32,000 of the strongest army against 6,000 kids, 14 to old as 70. Like, you go, no way. The belief is the English, the British government, the British army never loses. And now they're going against these guys? Come on, it's over. Like, if you don't know the ending, you think you already do, right? George Washington painted a belief, liberty or death. Like, it wasn't a joke. He ran, hid, did surprise attacks. He got resourceful as hell. And, well, we know the story of America. Yeah. I know that's only one of a million stories. But when you change that belief one little step at a time and find yourself getting evidence that that new thinking could actually work, just compound that evidence, take the success from the past, change the story, prove the old story's a lie, and one step at a time. We all overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5. 5 years are going to go by no matter what. We might as well change the world.
Yeah, and if you have kids, and a lot of my entrepreneur listeners do, they have families, you know that. Like, you're sitting there, and right before your eyes, you're having your child become like 0 to 5.
I did it. My daughter walked in the house last night, and she's almost eye to eye to me. I'm like, where'd my little baby go? Like, where is she? Like, I'm looking for her in there,
I know. My 12-year-old did the typical, I knew it was coming, eye roll, and mom is not the smartest person in the room thing. And I'm like,
my daughter's 13, so I got it. I had it the other day. You understand. So, yeah, I get it. And not to digress, but even last night my daughter had like a little worse. She had a bad dream. So she came down and got me, and she hasn't in years. And she came down and got me, and I went back upstairs with her. And, she's literally as tall as me. She's 13. She's a couple inches shorter. So I lay down next to her, and I'm like rubbing her head, and she's like all comfortable, like half little girl. And it's like, all of a sudden she realized she was 13, and she's like, big smile on her face. And she's like, oh, Dad, you don't have to stay here. Don't lay with me. It's kind of weird. I'm like, wait a minute.
Okay, that was a Band-Aid ripoff.
And then I was walking out. She's like, Dad, I love you. I didn't mean that. I'm like, baby, it's okay. You just, I said, you teach me how to navigate a 13-year-old. I'm good. I trust you. She's like, okay, all right. Like, I could tell the internal dialogue was, oh, my dad's here. Oh, I'm too old for my dad.
What am I doing? But it goes by in such a blink, right? It really does. And it is like, the time is, there's no better time than right now to be helping people that are just a step or two behind you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what my desire, that's what, Tony and I have been doing for the last couple of years, is we're in this age where the world is not looking to go back to school for more general knowledge. It's just the fact that, I'm not trying to dog the school system. They just didn't keep up. Right. Truth of the matter is, the world's growing exponentially, and they didn't. So the world is not going back to school for more debt and get general knowledge. And people are realizing that trial and error is really hard because we're moving so fast. Right. So what's the world doing? They're going to people who've already done it. People like you that are listening and watching. If you're a chapter ahead, 6 months ahead, a year ahead, 5 years ahead, they want that information so they can start off where you left off. And again, we're talking about opportunity. It's just a great opportunity to do something impactful, if that's what you desire, which most of us do, and also have the ability for massive success, right? Because when you can share an experience you went through, and allow someone to go faster, you're impacting their life. But the world is paying for that today like never before, right? And even, and this is something that might be common to some of you, and there's something that might blow your mind. You know where people are doing, and because we're so in this and we have thousands and thousands and thousands of members around the world in 150 countries. What I didn't see coming, Shannon, was people turning their mess into their message.
Amen.
Right? They go through a divorce. I know this amazing woman went through a divorce and she started it got really ugly, and she watched her kids being suffering. And one day she woke up and said, enough, this is on me. I'm doing this to my kids. She built a framework about having an amicable relationship with her ex and making her kids thrive. She switched it so fast. And now what does she do? There's other couples going through an ugly divorce. She shakes them up, and her job is training them to have an amicable divorce and put the kids first. And she's crushing it. This is her life now. At first she's like, I'm not an expert. I'm not good. And all of a sudden she's like, no. I am damn good at doing a divorce kindly. And I'm going to teach other people how to do it. But that's over and over. And in every niche you could possibly imagine. A mom that cured her son, she has 2 kids, but she cured her son of eczema naturally. And she said she didn't want to put him on steroids. There was all these different opinions. She geeked out on the information for 6 months, got rid of her son's eczema. Now she's doing training to parents with kids with eczema, doing it naturally. It was kind of a mess. She studied it, and now she's the messenger. And here's the best part of that. That's where the world is today. Yeah. I believe 20 years ago, if someone said, you're going to help me with eczema, where are you a doctor? Right? You're going to help me with a divorce. Are you a therapist? It's like, I don't want a therapist. I want someone who's been there. You cured your kids, give it to me. You fixed your divorce so your kids are thriving, give it to me. Yeah. So I'm just shouting from rooftops. If you're someone who has knowledge, skill, and experience, if you have a mess that you could turn into your message, you need to learn how to package that. You need to learn how to share that. You need to learn how to find the people that want it. And in today's social media is the easiest ever before in history. Again, when I did infomercials, it was like smoke signals, right? So this is where the world is at. It's an industry that's expected to triple in the next 5 years, according to Forbes. So if you've been listening to this and you're ready for more impact, I suggest enter the information age. Knowledge is the new currency. It's time to start.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been talking about the Knowledge Blueprint all coming up. Everybody has been hearing about it. Your partnership with Tony and Jana and Brandon. And so we've got all the links in the show notes. I want my tribe to go in. Like if Dean and I have stirred your heart, if you're like, you know what? Yeah, I am done waiting for this next year, or this next thing, or this thing to be perfect. And if what they're saying is true, it's certainly been true for me and for Dean in his experience. Like he went out, and the big secret was he studied people who had done things that he hadn't done before, and same with me. And so we're asking you, like, if you've got that little thing that you could share, you know, a hand back and a hand up kind of thing, then all you need is somebody to grab your hand and show you the process.
Exactly.
And that's what KBB is all about. So definitely jump in if you haven't already.
The greatest thing, sorry, I didn't mean to try to get so
That's okay.
but most people don't know what they're going to offer. And we teach you in a methodical way to pull out your expertise or find the passion, or what are you going to report on because it's a niche you love.
Yeah.
Let me teach you how to get people to say yes to want that information, how to deliver that information, and how to do it over again. And it's simple. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but we got 60 years in this, Shannon, between the two of us. Yeah. And we created a process that pulls people through. Our graduation rate is off the charts. I mean, all we ever hear is, I bought 1 million courses I never finished. I finished yours. I'm getting impact, because we know how to bring people through and put it in a way where it's digestible. You could go at it 20 minutes a day, 5 hours a week, and all of a sudden have the opportunity to do what we all desire: impact and success. And that's why I think it's become a movement.
Absolutely. 100% agree. And I know Dean has to get going here in a second, but the combination of their processes, their path, their knowledge, literally the step-by-step process. And then you've got me to have your back from the standpoint of mindset and be able to support you in that way. It's a power duo. That's why I want you to get involved. So don't wait, because this is going to go away soon, and then you're going to miss your opportunity for another year. Not only do you jump in with them and get all of their expertise, but then you also have our support through our program.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dual thanks. Because like, that's it, right? It's just our brains that talk us out of it. So we're going to support you on both sides. really help you out in that way. It's my passion to see people step into their calling, just like it is for you guys. So I'm just honored to be a part of witnessing this and watching it happen, and then being a part of the tribe. So Dean, thank you.
Shannon, thank you so much. I had so much fun on this conversation. I hope to get the chance to meet you in person.
Yeah, no, I'd love that. And if I can ever serve you in any way, let me know. And I know my tribe's going to be jumping over, and I know you'll take good care of them. So
We
thanks.
sure will.
All right, Dean.
Everybody, I'll see you later, Shannon. Thanks.
Wow. Holy moly. What an interview. I mean, Dean and I, you cannot listen to us on 2X because we both have that kind of energy. So everything is down in the show notes, but I wanted to bring him on because it was vital that you really saw the heart behind what's going on and how you can really share your knowledge to get out to the world. And Dean and Tony are two of the greats in our industry, and I know they have your back, and we have your back too. So definitely check it out. And I would love to hear on the socials, what is it that the thing that you're thinking about starting, the thing that you're wanting to grow, what is that? What is that, like he said, that mess that's becoming your mission, or the business that you've started that you're ready to scale? Please tag Dean and I and Tony all on social, the three of us, and let us know, and take a look at the show notes and you'll get all the details on how to get more connected with them. That's all we have for this week on the Epic Success Podcast. Bye for now.